What if the God who made our world wasn't a savior, but a liar? A blind tyrant cut off from the source, forging a prison and calling it creation. We were told to worship him. But what if we were meant to escape? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Demiurge. If you too are a blind tyrant, check out Pantheon Apparel, our clothing brand inspired by myths, legends and folklore. We ship worldwide and are rated excellent on Trustpilot. Link in the description. He is the architect behind reality as we know it, a being whispered about in Gnostic texts, feared in occult traditions, and reimagined in everything from philosophy to science fiction. To some, he is the craftsman of the cosmos. To others, he is the ultimate deceiver. And if the ancient heretics were right, he's still ruling. Plato was the first to name him. In Timaeus, written in the 4th century BCE, Plato describes a being he calls the Demiurgos, the craftsman. No god of thunder or justice, or father figure watching over creation, but pure intellect. He shapes the universe through chaos, shapeless, eternal matter, and imposes order upon it. He's not a god in the way that we understand gods. He's a function, a principle, a force of organization. The Demiurge acts with unshakable precision. He gazes upon the eternal forms, those perfect, unchanging blueprints that exist in a realm beyond time, and begins to mold matter to match. The form of justice, the form of beauty, the form of triangle. These are the purest version of every concept that can exist, and the craftsman's task is to copy them. He's like a builder tracing sacred geometry, following a design he didn't draw and would never alter. He sees the raw confusion of the cosmos and shapes it into something that reflects higher truth. From disorder, he pulls the stars into their constellation. From instability, he draws the laws of motion, proportion, harmony. He brings time into being by setting the heavens in motion. He crafts the soul of the universe, what Plato calls the world soul, a vast conscious entity that stretches across all of reality, binding every piece into a single living whole. It is beautiful, structured, complete. But there is no mercy in it, no cruelty either, only symmetry. Only the logic of perfection. The Demiurge isn't evil, but he's not good either. Neutral, you could say. He doesn't bless, punish, nor care. He simply performs the role of order itself. What he builds isn't a sanctuary, but a system, a flawless structure where every element has its place, even you. And so we are left with a question that still haunts philosophy. When a force imposes structure upon chaos, is that act a gift or a chain? Is the Demiurge a creator or the first warden? And if the world itself is a masterpiece of logic, then what place is left for freedom? From the 2nd to the 4th centuries CE, Gnostic sects spread across the ancient world. To understand the Demiurge, we have to go back even further, to a time before time, to the very nature of being itself. To their followers, the material realm offered no wisdom or revelation, only confinement. Creation itself was a flaw, a cut in the fabric of reality. And at its center stood a single being known by many names. Yaldabaoth, Saklas, Samael. Creator, tyrant, pretender. 3 names for the same blind force that shaped the world in error. In the beginning there was only the monad, a boundless silent source. From this infinite presence emanated the pleroma, the realm of pure spirit. It was fullness without weight, light without shadow. Within this expanse moved the eons, eternal beings who reflected the monad's essence. Each one held a facet of truth, mind, grace, and wisdom. But wisdom reached too far. Sophia, the eon of insight, sought to know the unknowable directly. Her act was solitary, unbalanced, and irreversible. From her rupture emerged a force, vast, malformed, and blind to its origin. This was the Demiurge. He came into being outside Pleroma, without knowledge of the source and without harmony. He saw only himself surrounded by chaos. He began to shape it. He gathered matter and carved out the heavens. He set the stars into motion. He formed the earth and filled it with creatures. And at the height of his work, he raised his voice and declared, "I am God, and there is no other beside me." But the monad remained untouched. The true source remained silent, and the one who shaped the world remained unaware. His arrogance was delusion, a blind creator creating a world in imitation of something he couldn't comprehend. His law became structure. His isolation became worship. From the perspective of the Gnostics, the cosmos itself bears the imprint of that ignorance. Time itself, they believed, twisted with the imprint of error. Matter, they claimed, carried the tremor of its malformed origin. Morality flows from a flawed origin, and within this system he planted his greatest invention: humanity. Souls fractured from the pleroma, sealed in flesh, veiled in forgetfulness. Each one a spark of spirit hidden inside a machine. But even the Demiurge cannot reach the soul directly. He creates forms, he commands structures, yet the spark remains alien to him. Gnostics believed that within this prison lies the possibility of escape, but not through faith or obedience, but through gnosis. The soul must remember its source. The lie must be recognized from within the illusion. The Demiurge is worse than the devil, a cosmic orphan, confined of his own supremacy. A builder lost in his own design, a being who governs reality through ignorance, law, and certainty, never through wisdom. He is the God who does not question himself, and that is the most dangerous kind of God there is. Creation in the hands of the Demiurge was never liberation. It was containment. To maintain his illusion of divinity, the Demiurge filled the heavens with servants, archons. These were his administrators, rulers tasked with governing the layers of reality. Each one held dominion over a planetary sphere, forming a ladder between the material world and the true source. This was the cage. The archons regulate movement between the realms. They assign laws to matter. They bind souls to time. Their presence isn't limited to the physical world. They stretch across the heavens, occupying the spaces between flesh and spirit. In Gnostic cosmology, the human soul must pass through each of these spheres after death, confronting the very beings who kept it veiled in ignorance. Some texts speak of passwords, deceptions, of resistance. No soul rises freely. Each step upward is a challenge, and each gate a confrontation. The soul, still flickering in the spark of the pleroma, carries something that archons cannot touch: memory. And so they obscure, they question, they test. The journey back to the source isn't a straight line, but a gauntlet built by those who believe themselves rightful rulers in the in-between. These spheres echo older systems. In Hermeticism, the soul sheds layers of corruption while passing through the planets, each one stripping away vice and attachment. In Kabbalistic thought, the tree of life climbs towards the divine, while the Qliphoth, its shadow, leads deeper into illusion. The Gnostic model sits beside them, but it does not redeem the climb, it condemns it. Each archon is a checkpoint, a force tasked with defending the great deception that matter is all there is. Gnostics believe the soul must awaken not just to its imprisonment, but to the structure of the prison itself. The Gnostics did more than rewrite creation. They redefined its God. To them, the Old Testament was a ghost code, a fractured script written by a being who mistook fear for holiness and obedience for truth. The God of the Hebrew Bible, the one who flooded the world, shattered cities, and tested loyalty through torment, was Yaldabaoth. They read the signs in fire and ash. A God who demanded sacrifice, who chose favorites, who issued curses, who walked through the garden with thunder in his voice. This was a ruler desperate to be seen. And when he said, "I am God and there is no other beside me," the Gnostics heard insecurity. In their eyes, the entire arc of Scripture inverted. Abraham's trial became the command of a tyrant. The flood became the reset by a jealous craftsman. The law delivered to Moses was not divine instruction, but control codified in stone. Even the figure of Christ was transformed. In texts like the Gospel of Judas, Jesus does not serve the God of this world. He opposes him and arrives to expose him, to awaken the hidden sparks trapped in flesh, to teach that salvation lies in awakening. In this vision, the crucifixion was the ultimate act of rebellion against the one who ruled through suffering. To follow Christ was to reject the false god of thunder and smoke, to recognize that the chains were holy only because someone said they were. Not everyone saw the world as a prison. In the 3rd century CE, a philosopher named Plotinus stood at the edge of that abyss and refused to fall in. His work, the Enneads, was a defense of existence as something meaningful, not mistaken, a declaration that the world, for all its flaws, was still rooted in the good. Plotinus didn't deny suffering, corruption, or limitation, but to him these were signs of a flawed creator, the inevitable consequence of distance. Everything begins with the One, an infinite source beyond thought, beyond form, beyond comprehension. It doesn't think, it simply is. It overflows. From that overflowing comes nous, the divine intellect. From nous, the world soul, and from the world soul, the material realm. This is a hierarchy of proximity. The closer something is to the One, the more real it becomes. The further it drifts, the dimmer its light. Matter is not evil, it is simply furthest from the source. In this vision, the Demiurge is no blind tyrant. He is the ordering principle of the cosmos, a force of structure that reflects the divine intellect. He brings harmony, not delusion. Where the Gnostics saw a counterfeit god ruling a broken system, Plotinus saw beauty unfolding in degrees. The soul's journey was a return through creation by contemplation, virtue, and inner ascent. Every soul, no matter how lost, still holds the trace of the One, like sunlight clinging to a distant wall. Gnosticism told us that to exist is to fall, to be trapped in the aftermath of a cosmic era. Neoplatonism answered that to exist is to participate, however faintly, in the radiance of the real. The same world, 2 readings, one a cage, one a gift. As the Middle Ages ended and the Renaissance dawned, Europe rediscovered the wisdom of antiquity. Texts long buried in monasteries or preserved in the Islamic world came flooding back. Plato, Plotinus, and above all, the Hermetica, writings attributed to Hermes Trismegistus. To Renaissance thinkers like Marsilio Ficino and Giovanni Pico della Mirandola, these were not relics of a dead past, they were keys to a hidden unity. Prisca Theologia, a single primordial truth running through paganism, Judaism, and Christianity alike. In this synthesis, the Demiurge was honoured as the great architect, a craftsman who ordered the heavens according to divine mathematics. Ficino, who translated Plato and the Hermetica, saw the world as a living harmony. Music, astrology, and magic were all ways of aligning human life with the order of the cosmos. Pico pushed further, arguing that man stood at the centre of creation, free to ascend toward the angels or descend toward the beasts, a reflection of the demiurgic principle of freedom within structure. Where the Gnostics had seen a prison, the minds of Florence saw a ladder. This Renaissance reimagining also gave the Demiurge new faces. Sometimes he was linked with Hermes Trismegistus, the mythical sage said to bring Egyptian and Greek wisdom, a prophet of architecture. Sometimes he was mirrored in Christ himself as Logos, the ordering word through which the world was shaped. In both cases, the Demiurge ceased to be a blind tyrant and instead became a channel for divine wisdom, shaping reality as a mirror of higher perfection. Yet the cracks of creation remained. Paracelsus, the revolutionary physician and alchemist of the 16th century, believed that the visible world was animated by invisible agents. He wrote of elementals, gnomes of earth, undines of water, sylphs of air, and salamanders of fire. These beings were not demons nor angels, but spiritual reflections of the natural order. They were servants of the architecture, fragments of the demiurgic act, sustaining the elements themselves. To interact with them was to glimpse the scaffolding of reality, the hidden maintenance of the world. Meanwhile, Kabbalah, entering Christian circles through translations in the Renaissance, added yet another lens. The Sephirot, the 10 emanations of divine light, described creation as a cascading descent from infinite unity into finite matter. But alongside them lurked the Qlipoth, the husks or shells of failed creation, distortions that clung to the tree of life like parasites. They represented the shadow side of the demiurgic process, the imperfections that arise when divine light fractures. Here, creation contained residue, imbalance, and danger. The Renaissance vision of the Demiurge is therefore not one of simple praise. It is double-edged. He is the wise builder, yes, the geometer who traced the stars and measured the harmonies of the spheres. But he is also the figure through whom imperfection leaks into being, the one whose architecture contains cracks and shadows. In these esoteric systems, the Demiurge became less a single tyrant and more a principle, the hand that shapes the world, whether in harmony or flaw. As for the magicians, alchemists, and mystics of the Renaissance, it was a map. Through music, ritual, astrology, and alchemy, they believed one could rise back through the layers of reality, retracing the demiurgic pattern toward the source itself. In the sanctums of secret societies, the Demiurge was hinted at, encoded in symbols, buried in rituals only the initiated could decode. The Freemasons invoked the great architect of the universe, a figure of order and balance. But this architect was never named. In a tradition where symbols are everything, anonymity matters. The square and compass trace the architecture of the universe itself. Geometry became sacred because it reflected something ancient, the act of shaping the unshaped. The Masonic Demiurge wasn't, but he was distant. He laid the blueprint. What men built with it was their test. Further underground, the Rosicrucians spoke of hidden masters, celestial hierarchies, and layers of unseen reality. They inherited the Hermetic and Neoplatonic systems, expanding them into metaphysical maps where each plane of existence had its ruler, its architect, its gatekeeper. The Demiurge was one such power, presiding over the dense material realm. Not malevolent, but limiting. A necessary veil over truth. The material world was, in their view, flawed, concealed deliberately. Alchemical symbols hid his fingerprint. The transmutation of base metals was about piercing through the crust of creation. By the 19th century, these systems evolved again. Helena Blavatsky, founder of Theosophy, taught that the Demiurge was a lesser logos, a being who initiates physical evolution but cannot grasp spiritual ascent. He is a builder acting on instinct, a cosmic functionary unaware of the source that birthed him. In her view, the true divine source was always beyond, and evolution was a rebellion against its blindness. He built the stage. We were meant to outgrow the script. Then came Aleister Crowley. Where others spiritualized the Demiurge, he weaponized him. In Thelema, the Demiurge is every voice telling you who to be, every law written in stone, every system pretending to offer freedom. Crowley's occultism taught that true will, the soul's path, unchained, can only be found by smashing the architecture built around you. Whether it looks like religion, morality, or even enlightenment, if it's a system, it's a trap. The Demiurge is the god of those traps. And so within the mystery schools, the Demiurge becomes a concept, a guardian of limitation, placed between you and the real. Not to be destroyed, but surpassed. His is an initiation, but only if you refuse to stop at the temple doors. The fear that reality is a lie older than science fiction, but in the 20th and 21st centuries it returned with new names, new visions, and new technology. Philip K. Dick, one of the most visionary science fiction writers of the modern era, experienced this collapse of perceived reality firsthand in 1974. After a strange experience involving a pink beam of light, Dick became convinced that time was broken. He believed that the Roman Empire had never ended, that history itself was a projection, and that a higher intelligence, Velis, the vast active living intelligence system, had contacted him. Through novels like Ubik, Velis, and The Divine Invasion, Dick blurred the lines between fiction and revelation. His stories offered an unsettling echo of Gnostic thought. Reality is a prison, and the true world lies just beyond the glitch. Cinema followed. Films like The Matrix, Dark City, The Truman Show, and Westworld all center on a single premise. The world is fake, and someone built it that way. These creators are not saviors but wardens. Some are machines, some are corporate overlords, some are simply storytellers, but they all write the rules. The protagonists awakened to the reality where choice was an illusion, freedom was choreographed, and every memory was a product of manipulation. In philosophy and tech culture, this idea found new life in simulation theories. Thinkers and public figures, including Elon Musk, have entertained the possibility that reality is a computer simulation, so precise in its construction that we fail to recognize its artificial nature. This theory reframes the ancient Gnostic claim that we are not experiencing truth, but a fabricated overlay. Our universe is a rendering. The architect, whether machine or mind, remains hidden behind the veil. Modern conspiracies have also resurrected Gnostic imagery. Talk of reptilian overlords, astral parasites, and false light beings mirrors the Gnostic archons, beings who rule through deception, distortion, and control. The aim is not to please the ruler of this world, but to expose him, to tear down the stage and find the source beyond. If the Demiurge is real, then theology itself is inverted. The God at the center of countless prayers and doctrines may not be the source of love, but the source of limitation. The world, with its cruelty, its chaos, its endless cycles of pain, is not broken because of human sin, but because the architect of its laws built it that way. This isn't a fall from grace, it's a misalignment with truth. Salvation, then, is not about submission. It's about memory, recovering the knowledge of a forgotten origin. The soul is not guilty, but lost. Christ was not a sacrifice to satisfy the Creator, but a messenger who came to expose him. His teachings were tools for escape, the cross, the signal flare. This reimagining sends tremors through religion. It casts suspicion on texts, rituals, even morality itself. If the rules are written by a lesser God, then obeying them may only deepen the illusion. And yet, this is not a call to nihilism. It is a call to clarity, to ask what lies beneath its voice. In the modern age, the Demiurge becomes the structure that resists change, the invisible hand that arranges lives into systems. He's present in institutions that demand conformity, in ideologies that punish deviation, in technologies that record and direct behavior. In this view, to awaken is to recognize the forces that mold thought, perception, and desire. The question is no longer, why is there evil? But who built the conditions in which evil thrives? If reality is a trap, then theology becomes the blueprint, and freedom begins by refusing to take the design at face value. He is the God who builds without wisdom, the ruler who demands obedience but fears truth. He is the architect of the trap, but not its key. He forged the heavens as walls and called it salvation, sealed the spirit in flesh and named it life. Every breath you take is within his system, every thought bound to his pattern. And if you feel the fracture, the distant pull beyond the veil, you may still have time. But most of us will never know we're asleep.